Hey guys, this is Spark Plus Ultra here, and this is my new What If. What if Deku had Ghost Rider abilities? Hell's Coin Flip. And I hope you like this video. Thanks to Torn Google for commenting down this What If. Now, let's begin! In a world where 90% of humanity has a superpower that is called a quirk, some don't, and there is a light that shines bright that we call heroes, and the darkness that we call the villains. But there's one that always catches the other. It all takes a single flip of a coin that draws you in, and if that coin gets the wrong side, then what would you do if you were catching the devil's bargain? Hi, I'm Deku Midoriya, and this is My Hero Academia. When Deku was young, Deku was bullied and basically picked on because he didn't have a quirk. He didn't really mind that much. He cares deeply for his mom and wanting to be a hero. But then when his mom went to the doctors, she found out she had cancer, and it was cancer to the breast, and Deku felt sad to hear that his mom had cancer and wanted to help her. He doesn't know how to help her, but then he stumbles upon a book that was signified as summoning a devil, making a deal. And Deku did the description said, and when it says this, Mephisto, I want to make a deal with you from the king of the 7 domains of hell. I want to summon you and make a deal. And then candles went out, and then hellfire appears, and then a calm but a chuckling smile appears. Oh, it's so good to have someone to talk. You're Deku Midoriya. And Deku was shocked to see that Mephisto knows him. And Deku says, Mephisto, I thought it wouldn't work, but you're really here. And Mephisto says, oh, Deku, even the tiniest miss can be true. So, you want a deal with me? What's your deal? Mephisto gives a cunning but calming voice to hear from him. Then Deku says, I want to get rid of my mom's breast cancer and need your help. I'm willing to make a deal with you. Then Mephisto says, well, I'm willing to make that exception. Then Mephisto says, but here's the deal. Your soul is mine, and I'm willing to make you a servant to punish wicked hearts of humanity. And Deku sees Mephisto makes a contract from his hellfire, and Mephisto says, you will serve me under these conditions. And Deku then hesitates to write down, you promise? And Mephisto says, of course, I won't lie on this occasion. Even devil can tell some truth about it. Then Deku signs the contract, making deal with Mephisto, and then the contract was gone. Thank you. I'm quite eager to see your soul to me. Your family heritage is pretty interesting. Now, Mephisto snaps his finger, conjuring flames and grabbing Zuko's soul and merging with one other soul with him. There, consider this contract a deal. And then Mephisto was gone, going back to his realm in hell. And Zuko was in shock. Zuko felt his heart beating like a drum. And then Zuko says, that was very heavy, feeling his heart beating every moment. But then he goes to see his mom and sees that his mom was giving out good news, that her heart feels fine and her breast cancer is gone. And Zuko smiles, seeing that Mephisto was right making that deal. But then the incident. The next day, when Zuko was at preschool, he was walking back home. But then, when he got back home, he didn't see his mom anywhere. But when he turned on the TV, Zuko saw something on the news, and his mom died in a car crash. And Zuko teared up in his eyes, seeing the car crash. Mom! Then Zuko was at the funeral and teared up, crying, and Mitsuki Bakugo says, Zuko, sorry this happened. And Bakugo didn't say anything. He may be a bully, but he doesn't go that far. And then Zuko lives with Mitsuki Bakugo's family, which gets awkward and problematic a bit, with Bakugo and him having disagreements. But when it was in the night, Zuko's head turns into flames, becoming a flaming skull. And Zuko says, right, I made the deal. Now I need to punish the sinners. Then we go to a time skip. 10 years have gone by, and Zuko was still quirkless, but he becomes more, mature, and secretly has a motorcycle. Zuko became more edgy and strict, and says, alright, let's get to school, Bakugo, when he was in Bakugo's house. And Bakugo said, yeah, shut it, Deku. And Zuko rolls his eyes. Let's get going, or you make a crash out. And Bakugo says, hey, don't compare that to your incident. Mister wants to fight me. And Zuko says, shut up. And Bakugo says, hey, you were wimpy, but now you turn into a 180. What's up with that? And Zuko then says, I don't know, I became more strict. And Bakugo says, why I oughta. Then Zuko says, hurry up. Then Bakugo says, yeah, I'm getting my freaking clothes on. And then Zuko grabs out his chain and says, get over here! And Bakugo says, wrapped around in chains, Bakugo says, what the? Ah! Getting pulled back. And Zuko says, you are taking too long. And Bakugo says, you are so dead. Then they get to school, and Bakugo was confident that he gets to UA, and Zuko, once happy, wanting to go to UA, was just focusing on something else. But when the teacher says, alright, Bakugo, you're going to UA. And Bakugo says, "Ha! Told you, you guys, because no one could beat me, Katsuki Bakugo." Then the teacher says, "Oh, right, Suki, you're going to UA as well." And Bakugo freezes and turns into stone. Yeah! And Suki says, "Sure, whatever." And then Bakugo says, "Oh no, you're not! You're not going anywhere! You're going to leave!" And Suki says, "And what's so problematic, Kachan?" And Bakugo says, "You're just a sidekick!" And Suki then says, I don't really see that, but that's your thought." And Bakugo says, "That's it! Me and you are going to fight this one!" And Suki says, "But the bell is gonna ring." And Bakugo says, Are you afraid?" And Suki says, "Sure, why not?" Ooh. With a basic look of, "Not really." And Bakugo says, "You are just so annoying." And Suki smirks. "Well, I have to go." And Bakugo says, "Hey, where are you going? You live at my house, remember?" And Suki says, "Just gotta get something at the store. Your mom asked me." And Bakugo says, "You freaking getting away with that. You are a freaking genius." Saying that sarcastically. And Suki says, "Thank you." And Bakugo says, "I didn't mean it literally." And then Suki goes to the shortcut. And Suki cracks his neck. Man, studying is so boring. Then he hears a thought in his head. There is a sinner here. And Suki says, "Shut it. I ain't letting you loose. I already know there is, just from that sin alone." Then Suki walks and tries to find him, turning into the Ghost Rider with his fiery head. And then when he was looking for him, the sinner comes, and it was the sludge villain coming out of the sewage, and says, "Whoa, isn't it a good choice to grab you? Let me have your body." But then Suki wrapped the sludge villain around with his hellfire chains, and Suki says, You have sinned numerous." And then the sludge villain realized, "Oh no, I chose the wrong one." Then Suki says, "Now you face your punishment," targeting his soul with his hell full of fire. Suki says, "Now pay for your sins." But then All Might appeared. "Don't worry, because I am here." Then Suki looks. "Oh, it's you, All Might." And then All Might looks. "What is going on here?" With a look of seriousness. "You must be the Ghost Rider, right?" And Suki says, "Well, yeah, I guess. I heard of you. I won't fight you, but if you cooperate, then there's no problem." Then Suki says, "Do you want him to be in jail?" And looking at the sludge villain. And All Might says, "Yes, that's how the politics will work in law." And Suki rolls his eyes and lets go of his chains. And Zuko says, "Such a pain to deal with villains like this guy." Then All Might says, "You're coming as well, Ghost Rider." And Zuki says, "Sorry, I'd rather not come." And then Hellfire was made, engulfing the flames around the road. And All Might felt the heat. Then uses his punch to create the wind to get rid of the flames. And then Zuku was gone, and the sludge villain was on the ground, was passed out by Zuku's punishment. And All Might thinks, the Ghost Rider's very strict. Then, when All Might takes the sludge villain into prison, All Might accidentally bumps into Zuku when he was getting into the police department. And then All Might says, Hello there, young civilian. How are you doing? And Zuku says, just fine. I was just looking after seeing the poor folks, helping them. And All Might says, why, that's a great help on helping the others. Young, who are you? And Zuki says, name's Zuki Midoriya. Then All Might says, that's a great thing to do, young Midoriya. And then Zuki says, question, why do you have more than one soul? And All Might was surprised to hear, question, can we talk somewhere? And then All Might puts the villain in the prison, and he then had a one-on-one talk with Zuki privately. Hello, well, you're the first one I heard say that. And Zuki says, really? And then All Might thinks for a minute. Maybe not. I heard someone similar say that. Flashing back, it was Zuku as the Ghost Rider. Why do you have more than one soul in you? Then he looks at Zuki, and Zuki says, what's up? And All Might says, are you the Ghost Rider? And Zuki says, what? No, why would I look like that? And then All Might says, you got a similar outfit that he wore. And All Might looks at it closely, and he was a similar age. Then All Might connects it. You're Ghost Rider, aren't you? And Zuki says, whoop-de-doo, you figured it out, with unenthused look. And All Might says, such a young boy doing vigilantism at a young age. That's way too brutal. Why did you do that to the villains? And Zuki looks at him. It's just a job I have to do. And then All Might says, I guess I'm not trying to kill them, but one of them did die. I will put that aside. I want to ask you something else. And Zuki was surprised to hear that. And Zuki says, what is it? And All Might says, I want you to be the next user of One For All. And Zuki says, really? That is a high cost to hear. And Zuki also was wondering, how do I even do that? And then All Might says, by doing this, plucking a hair. And Zuki then looks at it saying, eh? And All Might says, by plucking a hair, I give you DNA of it. Then Zuki says, let me flip a coin. Zuki then flips the coin in the air, if he's gonna accept it or not. Then the coin lands on him. And Zuki then sighs and says, looks like I accept. Then Zuki takes a piece of hair and becomes the next user. And I hope you liked this video and I hope you subscribe. See you next time. Plus Ultra!